understand what the substance is of some new legislation that's been passed in this province and help you understand what the impacts of that legislation might be on you, on your neighbors, on your employer, on your business. Unfortunately, a lot of what I have to talk about isn't good news. I wish it were otherwise. But I think it's important that people understand what this legislation says so they can decide whether it's something they want to be concerned about and take appropriate steps. I'm going to skip Bill 19 because I don't think Bill 19 they have a huge impact in this area, and I'm going to jump straight into Bill 50. And at first well, actually we're in Brooks here, and you're the tail end of one of the Bill 50 lines, the East ATCO HVDC line. So it will have some relevance to you, but I think I'll warn you that you're going to be very surprised about a lot of things you're going to hear. And as you're hearing me say them, through your mind, you're going to say, that just can't be right. That's exactly what I said when I started reading these laws, when I started researching the issues. So I'm okay if you're sitting there going, no, that's got to be wrong. But what I'm going to show you is things that will cause you to realize that this unfortunately is real and is very serious. And I will skip through some of my slides at times, like right there. Bill 50. Okay. We have major transmission lines in the province, just like all over the developed world. Well, how do those transmission lines get approved? Who owns them? Who pays for them? Here's how it used to work in Alberta. When the transmission line is proposed by a utility company, we'll pay to build it, and they get to own it after it's built. Okay? So we don't own the transmission line. ATCO or Altalink will own it. What used to happen is when a utility company would come forward and say, we want a transmission line. We think we need a transmission line. They had to go before the Alberta Utilities Commission, and they had to prove in an open public hearing process that that in fact there's a need for the line, and it's not just a want. Because of course we pay for it, the utility company gets it, it makes money off the construction and owning this line. And I often tell this little joking story about my wife and I to illustrate the point here. I came home one time and she said to me, she said, we need to renovate the kitchen. And I said, no, you want to renovate the kitchen. But the next day I happened to go in Edmonton. They have this really cool store, guys. You got to go see it. It's called the Garage Accessories Store. You can make the coolest shop. It's got lamps and cabinets and special flooring products. So I went right home and I said to my wife, I said, we need to renovate the garage. And she said, no, you want to. In other words, we all understand the difference between a need and a want. So the purpose of the Utilities Commission hearing was to make that distinction, to do that, be that arbiter, to separate those lines that were just the fantasy and desire of the utility company from those that the people of Alberta truly need. But what Bill 50 does is it takes that decision out of the public hearing room and moves it into the cabinet room, to the back room of cabinet. So now the cabinet decides whether or not we need lines. One of the players in this is an outfit called the Alberta Electric System Operator, and they're an agency of Alberta Energy, the Department of Energy, and they operate the grid, and they participate in this process. So that's what Bill 50 generally does. What's important as well is that, I'm just going to take those words off the screen so I don't distract you. What Bill 50 does as well is the other function the Utilities Commission had is they would review the costs for the project. They would say, okay, well, how much do you think this transmission line is going to cost? What kind of technology are you going to use? And they were in a position to say, no, those costs are ridiculous. We can put cost controls in, and because after all, the utility company gets paid cost plus, we pay for it, and after it's built, they own it. The government said lots of times on their radio ads, approving and building transmission lines is just like approving and building highways, schools, and hospitals. Okay, well, when's the last time that somebody, a construction company, got the right to build a highway without tender, could set their own price, guaranteed payment no matter what the costs were, and after it owned it? When's the last time that happened? Never. And if you want to take it further, the utility company gets paid when the power goes through the line. So it would be like you get to set up the toll. Wouldn't that be great if you were in the highway building business, if you could set your price, build the highway, and own it, and then set a toll up? Would be wonderful. Be great for the highway company, but not so good for Albertans. Well, you're going to see that that hypothetical has become reality. When I first started being involved in Bill 50, much of what I had to say was hypothetical. Like, this could happen, that could happen. Well, in the last few months, the hypothetical has become reality, as I just said. The first Bill 50 line is the Heartland line. It's up near Edmonton. I'm involved with it in the hearing process. And what happened is Alberta has major industries, so the forest, or the petrochemical industry, oil and gas industry, steel industry. They're represented by a group called the Industrial Power Consumers of Alberta. And I'm going to be talking quite a bit about them in a minute. There's another group called Alberta Direct Connect. They represent the forestry industry, the cement industry, and other industries. And they represent these industries on issues of electricity and electricity transmission. So the spokesman for the Industrial Power Consumers Association was at the pre-hearing for the location hearing on first Bill 59, and he spoke to the media, and he said that that if this line goes ahead, he says that the line is too big and expensive, said Executive Director Sheldon Fulton in an interview. It's far in excess of what industry actually needs. He also says it's going to triple the cost of electricity. Triple the cost of electricity. Now, let's just stop for a minute and think about who's saying this. This guy is not Greenpeace. This guy is not from the Sierra Club. He's not from the Solar Panel Association. He is from an industry, represents major heavy industries in the province, that their profitability is dependent upon a stable, reliable electrical grid. We can all imagine that some of these big plants, if suddenly the power goes out, it's not like when the lights go out at your house. It's equipment gets wrecked, they have to shut down the plant, and then they have to go through a full startup process. We can understand the implications. Imagine that happens halfway through the shift in a packing plant, okay? This is not, these guys want the system to be reliable. And they took a look at this proposed plan, and they said, well, the Heartland is the first of the Bill 50 lines. The total cost at that time was estimated to be, for the lines, was $12 to $14 billion. That's billion with a B. And they go on to say that it's going to triple the cost of electricity, and they go on to say that this electricity transmission plan will make Alberta less competitive, and it will push companies to leave. The lines will cost billions. We're going to spend billions of dollars, and there is no return on investment. So some other voices jumped in at the pre-hearing as well, and this one's from Jim Walkowicz, legal counsel for the Consumers Coalition of Alberta. This is again from an Edmonton Journal article on November 6th of this past year. He said his group is worried about what cost controls will be on the projects that have already been deemed by the Cabinet to be critical and approved under Bill 50. Remember, I mentioned to you that Bill 50 takes the cost controls out. When they initially proposed the Heartland line, it was $280 million. And then when they applied a few weeks later, it was $600 million. And people said to me, well, why was it 600 million? I said, why wasn't it $1 billion? I mean, they get to set the price. So we'll look what Mr. Walkowicz says. He said,